So Gary, this course is called Music Production Fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
Let's sort of start at the beginning. What is the most fundamental aspect of music recording?
Well, you'd think it'd be something about music,
You would think so.
but funny enough, it's not. It's
No?
a tool. It's a tool that you
Okay.
use to make that music.
What
And
tool would that be?
Computer.
Computer.
Yeah.
Right, you need to have a computer to record music.
Yeah. Well, Aaron and I have worked together for about 2.5 years, and I've had a chance to survey students from around the world, and the fundamental thing that they run into as a barrier,
Mm-hmm.
believe it or not, is computer trouble, computer problems, wrong computer, not having knowledge of what to do with
Sure.
their computers, about computers.
Not being computer literate
Yes.
and computer savvy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this day and age, really the basic fundamental thing that you need is a computer that has the correct specifications so that you can actually get some music recorded that is of high enough quality, and you can do it fast enough so you can actually get some licensing done and find your music ending up in movies and, television, video games, commercials, etc.
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So,
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go over the details. We're going to look at some screenshots. We're going to look at some actual specifications of computers right now. And this should be helpful for you if you have a computer and you need to upgrade, or if you don't have a computer yet and you're just getting into it. This will be great for you either way. And before I go into the details, I just want to say one thing, Aaron, and that is I've always, no matter where I've lived or worked, I've always had someone, because I'm not a super geek. I don't know about you with computers,
yeah, not so much. I know the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what I do is I always have, at hand a friend, a family member, someone that is a geek, like a real geek, and hopefully knows something about music.
Sure.
And that way, if I ever do get hung up or I get too confused,
You can call your geek friend and get help.
The Geek Squad,
Get your
music
geek on
guy.
yeah. Get your geek on the phone.
Yeah, so that's the first thing I tell all the students, is
Yeah.
get that in your pocket.
Sure, that makes sense.
Okay. So here we'll look at some details. All right, so I'd like to start out this first video in an 8-part series course called Music Production Fundamentals. And this is on computers, and I'd like to start out with an introduction to Victor Kesh. This is Victor Kesh. He's a computer expert. He and I have known each other for, I think, 5 years now. Huh?
Mm-hmm. It's been a while.
Yeah. And he started out as my intern when I worked in a studio. He became my assistant, and now I pay him to be my computer expert. He's currently going to school at the University of Arizona, and I think you're getting your PhD in, what is it in?
Biomedical engineering?
Biomedical engineering. So I've always been super impressed with Victor's, just his approach to anything he does. I mean, he's even played gigs with me, so he's grown up as a musician, incredible multi-instrumentalist. He's grown up with computers, building them from scratch for years, and he just has this mind that's just amazing. I mean, truly genius. So I'm lucky that he was in town here for the Memorial Day weekend, and I was able to catch him. We were going to do this by Skype, but here we are in the same room.
Yeah.
So welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So this being a course on music production as it relates to music licensing, the vast majority of the people that belong to howtolicenseyourmusic.com, which is where this course is going to be promoted, are home studio owners.
All right.
And a number of people who are going to be taking this course are going to be just beginners. And so my first question is, like if I were a beginner and I was going to go purchase a computer, what computer should I get? What kind of computer should I get? A PC, a Mac? Are there specifications that I need to know? And can you explain them to me just like in layman's terms so that maybe I can jot down, take some notes, and then go on my way?
Okay. Yeah, the age-old question of whether PC or Mac. I have to say that either one will work. It really depends on what you're comfortable with. If you grew up using the Mac OS and you're comfortable with their system, then I say go for that. There's no reason why you should learn a whole new operating system just because someone said you'll make better music, right? And if you're comfortable with a Windows-based PC, then go for that. Apple's, I mean, they tend to package everything all in one, and you can customize certain aspects such as the RAM, the hard drive, But other than that, you can't really switch out other components. PC, you can build that from scratch, and that's why you can switch things in and out as you want.
Cool. And does one sound better than the other?
I would have to say no. I mean, I think musicians sound different from other musicians, but I don't think a computer sounds better than another computer.
Okay, good. I mean, that comes up sometimes. I mean, I've heard salesmen. In fact, all my courses with howtolicenseyourmusic.com, one of the things they do is look for and shatter myths. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, that's one thing that I've heard sometimes. I don't know if you've ever heard that, somebody saying, this computer sounds better than that computer. So that's the total myth, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Definitely.
good. All right, so then, so now I know if I grew up with a PC, I'd be better off using that. If I grew up with a Mac, I'd be better off using that.
Yep.
Now, when I go to purchase one, because I'm building a home studio, what specifications? Are there specifications that I need to know about so that it works well with recording music, or does any computer work?
You want a computer that is, somewhat updated. You don't want one that's outdated, that's too slow, because a lot of the software out there, the plugins, require some horsepower, some brain power. And so one of the first aspects of a computer is looking at the central processing unit. That's the CPU, and I think you've seen, computer specs out there advertising how many gigahertz, how fast, 2.5, 3.0 gigahertz. That's one of the components you should look at, and I mean, I personally recommend at least 2.5 gigahertz.
2.5 gigahertz.
Yeah, and then also another level to the CPU is how many cores it has. So the core is basically, one thread or one stream into the CPU or the brain of the computer. When you have quad cores, that means you have 4 streams going. So it's better for multitasking.
I see. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen that on some specs, quad core, or I think they have dual core.
Dual
too?
core, yeah, they start off with dual core, quad. Now they actually have octa core.
Oh, wow.
Which has 8, but I think that's a little too much and more than what you need.
I see. Does dual core work? Will that work for somebody with a home studio, or should they get the quad core?
Dual core works. Quad core might be better. It depends on what kind of projects you're working on. So how intensive your recordings are. Good.
So we have the CPU, and then are there other specifications that they should know about?
Yes. So the next one would be RAM. So that's random access memory. And you can kind of compare that to just a temporary notepad that the CPU or the computer can write down and then erase. And that's what it is, random access. It's temporary storage.
Like a temporary memory?
Yeah, temporary, just to let you know if you're doing 1 plus 2 is equal to 3. You have the random access memory or the RAM, remember 3, and then you do 4 plus 5 is 9. Then you can recall your answer from the previous one.
I see.
And so it's really quick, fast-paced, temporary. I mean, and to the point where if you turn off your computer, everything in your RAM gets erased.
Oh,
yeah.
I see. And is there a number like connected with, like you had a number connected with the CPU?
Okay.
Is there a size that they should get for RAM?
I recommend 8 gigabytes of RAM to start off with. You can always expand. I think a lot of systems nowadays might come with 4 or 6, but 8 I think is a good starting point.
Oh, so is that something they could go to salesmen and say, I want a computer with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and we'll be able to say this one has 8 gigabytes, or will he have to say, well, you have to upgrade it, or do they have computers like that?
If you're not on a budget, then yes, you can go out and look for a computer with 8 gigabytes. If you're on a budget, you might find a good computer that has less RAM, and it's actually cheaper to upgrade it yourself.
Oh, I see.
Than to pay more for the next model up or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you upgrade both a PC and a Mac in terms of RAM?
Yes.
Okay.
Usually you can.
Good. So we have CPU, we have RAM, and any other specifications that they should know about for a good optimum home studio recording computer setup? So
for any project, after you're done recording it, it should get stored somewhere. And you don't want to store it in the RAM because you turn it off, it's gone. You want to store it on a hard drive. So, some sort of storage, permanent storage. So hard drives come in 2 forms now. They have the mechanical hard drive, which is traditional. You have a spinning platter with a head that reads and it's magnetized. And then now the newer version is a solid state drive. Oh. And so it has no moving parts.
Isn't that like a thumb drive has no moving parts? And
pretty much, yeah. It's like a massive size thumb drive. And It is faster, quieter, no moving parts.
Is it
runs-
cooler then? Because I know
runs
those
cooler
other
too.
ones
Yeah.
create heat, don't they?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a great feature of the solid state drives.
Oh, good. And what's the price difference if I got a regular mechanical hard drive or a solid state hard drive?
So the price is still pretty. I guess there's a pretty big gap between the pricing right now because the hard drives are much cheaper that are mechanical, and they go in the terabyte range, while the solid state drives still kind of linger in this gigabyte range because it's more
Oh,
expensive.
because it's a newer technology, like when calculators came out, kind of.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so they're not as, they actually don't store as much, the solid states right now.
Oh, the regular hard drives do store a lot, but the solid state drives, they can't manufacture them at a larger capacity that's consumer price friendly.
Oh, I see. So if you did get two that were comparable, the solid state would be way more expensive.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
And so, all right, let's say I did get a solid state computer. What would be the storage number that I should go for?
Okay. For a solid state, I would start off with at least 120 gigabytes.
120 gigabytes.
Yeah. 240 would probably be even better. But I would recommend having another hard drive to store the rest because 240 will run out pretty quickly after so many sessions.
Oh.
So some computers are actually built so that they have two hard drives. One to have your operating system and your program like Cubase or Pro Tools stored in the solid state drive. That way it runs quicker. And then all your projects and your libraries of your sounds can be stored on the mechanical hard drive or the hard disk drive. And that is usually 2 terabytes and up.
Much bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, good. And then if I got just the regular traditional mechanical hard drive, what size?
I would start off with 2 terabytes.
2 terabytes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
good.
I mean, with pricing these days, you can easily afford 4 if you want.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So we had CPU, we had RAM, and then we had our hard drive.
Hard drive.
Right. And those are all the internal parts in that computer, right?
Those are the key ones, yeah.
Okay. So once they have that computer and they've got it at home and they're setting it up, is there anything important for them to know about the setup itself? Because I remember that's when I called you in. And if you're not if you're a super geek, then I'm sure you're tracking with this guy because he says stuff and a lot of it goes up here, which is why I have him. But if you're like Victor, then I'm sure you're relating directly to him right now. If you're not, and I know there's a lot of people who are not, then my whole point in this course and my whole point in having Victor here is to show you that I have Victor as one of my team members that's really important to my home studio. And without that, it can really drive you out of this industry. That's how important it is. You can get that frustrated. You can get that down. You can get that, just riddled with problems that you can't solve. And it's really frustrating when you're a creative person trying to move forward. So I remember when I got my computer, you helped me shop for it. And then we got it into my studio. And then I called you in and you did stuff at that point. So what can you explain that on installing your program or anything that they need to know about? Without getting super technical, is there anything that they need to know about? Or is that something they should just have someone else totally touch when they're doing installing and they're actually...
I mean, they could attempt, but a lot of times when you buy a computer, it's preloaded with an operating system and has like free trial for antiviral software and all these other programs they're trying to promote, and a lot of that takes up resources. And so, I mean, what I recommend, I did for you too, is actually to just wipe the slate clean.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so we just format the hard drive, install a fresh copy of your operating system, so in this case Windows, and then install your audio recording program and kind of work up from there.
Right.
And just kind of ignore all the other bells and whistles that they try to sell you on the laptop or on the desktop.
Good, excellent. And then I know my home studio computer, I have a desktop, and that's one question I had for you too.
Okay.
Is a desktop better than a laptop? Or is a laptop okay? I mean, a lot of people. I started out with a laptop,
Right.
and it was. I mean, I did a film score soundtrack, on that laptop. Is there what would you recommend?
Well, I've worked with both, and I want to say that laptops sometimes are issues with humming or interference because everything is so compact in the laptop. They minimize it so that it's portable, lightweight, but because of that, there's a lot of things that are out of control compared to a desktop. The desktop, you can kind of move things around, you can get a larger case, you can get quieter fans. I mean, there's a lot of ways to solve a problem with the desktop. But the laptop, you're kind of stuck with the package.
I see.
Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with using a laptop,
Right,
Yeah.
right. All right, good. And so then when they wipe their system and put on the new operating system, or have someone do it,
Yeah.
one of the things that I did, and I think you recommended this too, and I was able to do it, is I never have that computer on the internet.
Yeah. That's
So you want to talk about that? 'Cause
Yeah.
you mentioned some things about that were really important.
I constantly tell that to my clients. You want to disconnect your production computer, whether it's a laptop or a desktop, from the internet. The internet is filled with distractions, so a lot of social media, but also on top of that, there's potential for virus, malware, who knows? And I mean, you need to protect it like it's your baby, and try not to, corrupt any files or any parts of the computer by connecting to the internet.
Good. You said someone I sent you to recently, a client. It's one of my students. You said that when he was pulling up one of his sessions, the actual Facebook notification came up or something.
Yeah, I think he had like a instant messaging on, and it popped up
In the
while
middle
I
of
was
his
I
session?
was remotely controlling his computer,
Uh-huh.
and I could see like, hey, you want to grab lunch or something like that. And I was like, this is not a great way to be creative. Is someone constantly bugging you or interrupting your creative process.
Right. So it's not just the fact that it's eating up energy and resources. It's
Yeah.
just the distraction.
Yeah, it's bad multiple levels.
Yeah. Good. And then once they have their computer at home, and I know we've gone over this quite a bit in terms of the musical aspect of it, besides the computer technical aspect of it. But and that's what I wanted to go over now, which is an interface.
Okay.
And if you can explain just in layman's terms, what is an interface?
The interface is responsible for converting your analog signal, so from a microphone, from guitar, from whatever, into a digital format. And that's usually done through an interface, and it's connected through, either USB, FireWire, or even Apple's Lightning port.
Okay, excellent. For more information about computers and music production, you can contact Victor directly at victor@titangroup.com. It's a company that he owns, Titan Group. You can see on the screen. I highly recommend Victor. You should use him as your personal computer geek.